Hi, Pavel. Good morning for me. How are you doing today?
Hi, Reid. I'm good, thank you, and thanks for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to get you on. I think we're right at the cusp of an exciting week next week, certainly, with Ignite and Pass and everything. So I'm glad I was able to fit you into the schedule. But it's first time having you on the stream for this, so I think it's definitely overdue, and I'm happy to have you on.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and I completely agree that that's the right time. Next week we may have different reality.
Yep. I think it's this is in a lot of ways this will be a good recap of the uh, things that have been, or better said, a summary of everything that we've had in the last 8 months, 7 months or so, especially
Yeah.
also on the topics of OneLake. But you've been heavily involved with both the MVP community, partners, uh, the fabric itself as a whole, and the both the project and the deployment and all of that, and definitely been instrumental in, I think, helping configure and move a lot of the gears involved in its evolution. But I think as a good starting point for sure for the people who maybe are not familiar with you, if you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction and kind of your involvement with the project and Microsoft itself, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Paweł Potasinski. I'm based in Poland. So between me and Reid, we have 9 hours of difference.
Yep.
Um, I used to be a Microsoft MVP on SQL Server and then data platform. I've been involved in community for years. So actually, I think that's how we met originally with Reid in United States. I was at the MVP Summit for sure, or some party like that. So now at Microsoft, I've just moved to customer advisory team. So my engagement is to work with some of the biggest customers of Microsoft on making our products better, specifically products for analytics and data management. So Fabric for sure is number one topic today. Um, just a week ago, I used to work on the Fabric community team. So yeah, you're correct. I've been involved in Fabric private preview for MVPs and partners. Great collaboration with MVPs. Absolutely awesome flow of feedback from many folks. So thanks for being involved as well. So happy to be here.
We finally get to see that the countdown on the Fabric trial period is finally starting to count down.
Yeah.
It's sunsetting to a new era as we're getting. What's the exact date that Fabric is going to general? Is that I'm assuming sometime after Ignite is probably when that will happen.
So it's not a public information, so I will not share it. But
Okay, and that's why I'm always
just
asking. Anytime I have a
just
Microsoft
stay
person, I
tuned.
never give information. I ask always
Just
first.
stay tuned. Just stay tuned. We cannot
Yeah.
share this information for sure.
Okay, that's fine. It's just sometime in the future.
Yeah,
Yep.
right now enjoy public preview. I'm really glad that you enjoy this counter not ticking down. It will start ticking down at some point, but yeah, just make a good use of trial capacities.
Oh yeah, and I in general really have had a lot of fun in the sandbox of playing around with all the new elements. But I think our focus today is very specifically going to go towards the idea of the OneLake environment and a lot of the capabilities that come from OneLake lake houses, and I'm guessing the direct lake connections as well. So I'm interested to see what you think is some of the cornerstones that makes that platform really powerful.
Yeah, so the thing is that I'm not sitting on specific features. So I am fortunate enough to have my own opinions. So I actually treat OneLake as one of the most disruptive parts of Fabric, to be honest. We actually speak about OneLake as one of the, let's say, core features or core capabilities of Fabric because one of the key pillars, or let's say priorities of Fabric, is to make the platform lake centric and open, and that's what OneLake actually guarantees. This is all. This is what it's all about. So, a couple of things that I value, because again, this is one of my favorite features in Fabric personally. So
Mhm.
couple of things that I think are super important in terms of OneLake. First of all, it is one data lake covering all the stuff you produce and work on in a single tenant. So it doesn't matter whether you have 1 or 20,000 workspaces, you still keep your data in a single data lake that can be easily used to share data across the whole organization. And that's a major benefit, because even working with Power BI, covering with semantic models right now, data sets in the short past, you typically produce those models to cover some complexity below, like warehouses, lakehouses, and other backend stuff. But typically, there are a couple of reasons. First, you need to serve data to business users, so you need to produce meaningful models. But also the second one is like, we don't want people to go to pretty much everything we have in our data in warehouses, lakehouses, because typically those are big data storages with lots of data in it and some complexity. So we cover that. But whenever you need to get to the same data from the different business area perspective, you typically build separate solutions. We see customers having copies of data, and typically the immediate problem that arises because of that is having silos and data out of sync. So that's what we want to eliminate. We came up with the idea of one copy. So whenever it's possible, we encourage in Fabric to keep a single copy of data and just share the data across the organization using different methods or techniques or features in OneLake, which I'm about to show probably.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as you mentioned, you've hit it on the head where, I mean, from the beginning of Power BI, scheduled refreshes provide a semi-solution to data siloing. Like, you are copying the data, but you have to have some type of a schedule. And until the next refresh kicks off, there's a degree of staleness that it has. And, to circumvent around that, sometimes you have to have up to 48 refreshes a day, but you're still constantly duplicating the data around. And it's it's a storage cost as well, for sure, and causes complexities in it. But it was required just because any live connections previously weren't really performant enough. We had direct query, but I think, as you and probably most consultants and people building this stuff will agree, like, you avoid that at all cost unless you have to, because it can be incredibly slow and has a whole other bag of complexities that comes with it when you use direct query. So it was something that you used as a fallback when you had to have true real-time data, but otherwise you try to have some workaround or enough scheduled refreshes to still do imports.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. The majority of data sets, or sorry, let's move to the new naming convention. Semantic models. The majority of semantic models work in import mode, and that's because of the performance level that we can guarantee through import mode. But also for other reasons, like, for example, keeping some level of security with RLS in import mode, etc. So that's typical. Also, we want to limit the amount of data that people can access, and that's the reality. Plus, some systems have some caveats or issues with things like scalability, concurrency. So that also solves the problems. But speaking about Power BI, and majority of Power BI people working with Power BI, the majority of them are business users, even if we may not see that quite easily, because when you work as a professional, you typically have some you live in a box, you speak DAX, etc. But normally, we see people using Power BI along with their natural ecosystem of applications, like Teams, M365 applications, Excel, of course. So the good question is, how can we make Fabric closer to those users in terms of how they used to work with data, using exactly their ecosystem. So that's why we call OneLake OneDrive for data. And it's not just phrase that we use in terms of marketing, but it's definitely more, because user can work with OneLake pretty much like with OneDrive for files stored for M365 purposes. So again, this is a great advantage of OneLake, that you can access this file system as you worked with OneDrive for sharing files. I would say the experience of sharing data items like lakehouses, warehouses also became very close to what you have in OneDrive in terms of sharing files. So again, this is something we want to make to achieve this, moving people easily from the current applications like M365 to Fabric.
Yep.
The other thing is about openness. So lots of people ask question, why OneLake, why lake houses, why basing on files? The answer is this: because using files you can rely on or standardize on open formats like Delta, and then Parquet, and to make this platform open for not just Microsoft ecosystem but for other applications. Keep in mind that customers currently have lots of existing solutions based on not just Microsoft or not just on Microsoft first-party services, but also other products. Databricks, to name just one example. So we need to make this platform easily integrated with other stuff existing on the market.
Well, I think open platforms are certainly a great way to go, and yeah, I'm really happy that these are being stored in those columnar formats within the files. If you want, I can also switch over to the desktop share, and we can also take a look at exploring this a little bit as well.
Sure, absolutely. Let's have a look
Beautiful.
at OneLake, absolutely. So here is just another Power BI environment. It's a bit customized, but in general, it's Power BI. Actually, it's Fabric, because you can see the switcher at the bottom. So I can easily switch between experiences from Power BI to, let's say, data engineering, etc. So the real game with OneLake starts when you create the first data item that stores your data. So let me just go and create what you are familiar with from Power BI's workspace. Workspace typically divides, let's say, projects or your something that you work on. So let me just call events, and then let's just create this workspace. Now this workspace, I didn't show that, but it is created based on it's backed by the trial capacity of Fabric. So you can see this little premium box here, but even if I go to workspace settings, I should get confirmation of that. So you can see that actually, yes, it is trial capacity of Fabric that I'm based on. It's important to notice that you have several ways to run Fabric, to use Fabric items in workspaces. Trial is just one of them. You can also spin up F capacity in Azure. You will be able to buy capacity through M365 in the future, and also you can use P capacities from Power BI, so premium capacities will also work for you. And then I will create the item which is related not to Power BI but data engineering. So do not get confused by options available under New button in Power BI. We try to narrow selection specifically for specific experience. So when you work with Power BI, it's natural to create Power BI items, but you can also click more options and switch to pretty much everything.
Now, curiously, just as the, because I know the roles that you can switch between does kind of expose what things can be added. It helps you to limit your role in the company to seeing what things you would likely want to produce.
So currently, there is no way to force that specific people in the organization will work with specific experiences. That's not there. We have all the experiences available for users who are allowed to use Fabric in general.
Yep.
So, but yes, the thing is about having focus on items that are typical for specific role. For example, data engineer will work with lakehouses, notebooks, some Spark jobs, and maybe data pipelines. So that's what we offer as a default experience. But that doesn't mean that you cannot create other items from this data engineering experience, because if you go to create, you have the full-blown experience of every possible item that you can create, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I will create a lakehouse in my newly created Havens workspace. So let me just call it demo lake. So again, look, what is important is that the experience of creating so sophisticated behind the scenes item like lakehouse, which requires storage, which requires some layer of abstraction over tables, is actually a matter of just putting a name. So that's beautiful, right? I mean, you don't have to be data engineer to create a lakehouse. You need to be data engineer to understand how lakehouse work, and maybe then to work over the data that you put in the lakehouse, right? So let's start.
You can create a lakehouse with entirely no code, technically. Like if end to end, you can use data flows Gen 2 and get everything in and start basically using it from the automatic data set perspective and never touch a block of code if you wanted to. Or you can go very deep. You can use pipelines, you can use T-SQL, K-SQL, anything with Spark jobs. So you can be as business analyst as you need to be, and you can be as much as a data engineer as you need to be to create a lakehouse, which is nice.
Absolutely, that's what we want to achieve. We don't want to give lakehouses and even warehouses to people who have some strong skill set, but also for people who just need some place to store their data centrally, and then make use of this data when there is a need to share the data across the teams or organization. So as you mentioned, the whole bunch of techniques that you can use to get data to lakehouses. Right now you can see there are 5 methods. You can just simply upload files from your PC or Mac, whatever. You can create data pipeline, which is more for orchestration, but also has copy data activity, which easily allow you to bring data from several sources. You can use well-known from Power BI, but expanded to new features, data flow Gen 2, which allow you to write data back to lakehouse or warehouse. And also you can bring shortcuts, which I will elaborate on later. So there's lots of techniques. My first trial will be just to put some data using upload from my PC. So I will create a folder which will be called, for example, payment type, because I have a file that represents this topic, this data. So I will just upload file using the easiest method. You can upload files, folders. As you can see, I've already been doing this. Let me just select this file and upload, and it's there. So I can immediately see this file. Now, a little note here: not every file will be available for preview in the browser. For example, Excel files you won't be able to preview. But there are other methods to view Excel files. For example, you can start data flow and open the new query to connect to Excel file and then just do your job, right? So again, CSV files and text files in general will be displayed. Also graphical files, but not Excel files or some more sophisticated formats. Okay. Now, what I can do, one thing about lakehouses that is worth mentioning here is that here on the left side in the Explorer, you see 2 zones of the lakehouse. One is called files, and it's what we call the unmanaged part of lakehouse. So you can put pretty much everything, binaries and non-structured data, pretty much everything. And we don't care about any data structures. We don't put any contract on the structure. Here you can store whatever you want. So it's a kind of landing zone for your data. But then you have also tables, which is all about creating tables, because people, when we come to building semantic models and presenting data in the reports, we want to have tables under our fingertips, right? So tables is about just keeping data in tabular formats. So let's make a table from my newly uploaded CSV file. It's as easy as load to tables, new table, and bang. Of course, it's not there for every format, CSV and Parquet right now, but this will expand for more formats in the future. So again, working with CSV and Parquet right now is the easiest one, because you just have this no code experience to create tables, right?
Exactly.
Now let's wait a few seconds, and I should see my table in a few seconds. There is some latency here, but come on, show up. I hope demo gods are with me today. Ha.
Yep.
No.
Murphy's Law.
Still no. But let me refresh the whole page. That sometimes works better. Nothing here. That's bad. Well, we probably got out of luck in front of demo gods.
We didn't make a sacrifice to Murphy today, so
yeah. So again, the other technique that I can work with is fully blown code experience, or as you mentioned, the data flows. I would say that notebook will probably be faster way to write it down. So let me just try to create a new notebook. It's a data engineering experience right now, fully blown Python, SQL, so code-based approach. Let's try to do something with this file. So first, I will do things like let me just manipulate a bit. I want this code to load my CSV file into a data frame object, which is basically something like a table, distributed table or distributed data set for Spark. So once I have this data frame, I will be able to also write it back to the table. Let me see if this table is created. No, still not. So I should be able to write it back. I don't have code here available, but let me just try to write something. df. Payment type. That's what I wanted to have as a name. I'm a SQL developer. Forget about my Python skills. I could switch to SQL. So techniques that you can use when you work with SQL is this. You can read the data into a data frame, then immediately move to this data to temporary view in a Hive database, and then use SQL experience in the same notebook. You can switch to SQL language using magic commands, SQL. And then you can write SQL to operate with SQL. But I do love
the language fluidity that it has.
Yeah,
to go from one to the other.
That's just typical Spark experience. But the good thing is that the session started in just a few seconds, which when you compare to existing Spark platforms, it's way faster than people used to work with. So you just see now we are good. So. Something didn't work for the low-code experience. Hopefully, we will fix it before GA, but we have our table. Now, what I want to show you is this OneDrive experience, right? I mean, OneDrive for data. Because Now we have a couple of things. We have CSV file in files section. We have payment type in tables section. So let's see if I can see this data using just another Windows Explorer window. So on the right hand, I have the view on my OneLake. So what you see here? Let me get back to the browser for a second. Before we met today, I created lots of workspaces. So I have my workspaces. Havens is just a new one, right? So I already had OneLake existing for this tenant. This is not the moment when OneLake was created. It was created much earlier. But the experience of working with OneLake for just another business user or users who got used to OneDrive is very similar to OneDrive. Let me just do one thing. OneLake, sync from OneLake, and then come on. Yep, Havens is here. Look, I have my newly created workspace visible as a folder. So let's dig into this folder to see what's inside. Now you can see that there is a folder called demolake.lakehouse. The first part is of course the name of my item. I called my lakehouse demolake, and the second one is the type of the item, because surprise, surprise, it's not just about storing data from lakehouses. Warehouses or Custo databases will store data in the same form. So let's dig a bit deeper. And we can see that tables and file sections are also visible as folders. And no surprise that my created payment type folder along with the CSV file are absolutely there. Even more, I can go back to the files section, and let me just drag and drop some file to this files section. Just another PNG file, some graphics. Let's go back and see what I see in my demo lake in Fabric experience. Files. Yeah, there is my PNG file, and I can even see it. Beautiful. So
excellent. Drag
and drop. Just work with files. If you are authorized to access those files, which I will talk in a second about. But the beauty is that you work just like with OneDrive, right?
Now, I think, and I'm curious if you'll get into this, but we're in the browser for this. Is there any way to access this similar to OneDrive from your desktop?
So you mean,
leading question.
Okay, so you mean accessing?
There you go. So, yeah, I was trying to lead into the OneLake browser, or the OneLake Explorer that you can install on your computer too.
Yeah, so OneLake Explorer. Yeah, so this little thing here is actually the additional application that you have to download and install. It's called OneLake File Explorer. Absolutely. And when you install this application and log in using your Entra ID identity, you have access to some OneLake items. You will see them here, right? Now, keep in mind that this is the big advantage, but also can be quite dangerous. Imagine that I have terabytes of data stored in OneLake, and somebody gets to OneLake, some unexperienced user, opens this great OneLake File Explorer experience and downloads serious portion of data from those terabytes to his or her PC. What will happen is you will pay a bill for transfer coming out from OneLake to your PC. So just be careful about this, and it shouldn't be the access to OneLake files shouldn't be provided to unexperienced users who really don't know what they do. Right? So just a warning. If you don't want anyone to access files in OneLake using OneLake File Explorer, there is an option that you can use as an administrator in Fabric. If you go to Admin Portal and search for OneLake options, you can limit access to OneLake from just OneLake File Explorer, and also external applications, so systems knocking to OneLake outside of Fabric. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's the beauty of having control over who can do stupid things, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So interestingly, I told you that this concept of OneLake is actually, maybe let's do one more thing. Let's confirm that it's not just about lake houses. In my other workspace, I have a warehouse with several tables. So let me just go to warehouse. You can see that here I have a folder which has data warehouse in its name. So let me just go there. And here, of course, tables is much more interesting stuff. DBO does it sound familiar? For SQL folks using SQL Server, for sure, it's the name of the schema, right? And then in the DBO schema, I just have my tables. And if you look further, they are all stored in the Delta format. And why we use Delta? You mentioned direct lake mode today. So that's actually,
yes.
that is why we use Delta. So there are a couple of things with Delta format. Of course, first, it's open. So people using different platforms, not just Fabric, can use this format, read Delta files from OneLake, but also it provides some capabilities like transactional work. So you can run transactions on top of Delta files. Plus, Delta is well compressed, right? And now we step into this beauty of combination of Delta format and Vertipack or X velocity, whatever you call it. So we actually by direct lake we combine the Delta and Vertipack to provide capability of querying data directly from OneLake from not data sets. Sorry, I just have to get used to the new name. Semantic models.
Semantic
right?
models.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It is a more concise name that I think better describes its capabilities than data set.
Semantic models that use direct lake mode knock directly to Delta files, and they can actually grab the compressed the columnary compressed data only from columns that you specify in your query. So that's the difference between dish mode and import mode when you just import pretty much everything that you define in your model, and you can query data as it is on OneLake. So that's the beauty.
So if you're using the File Explorer at all, will any conversions into Parquet or Delta Parquet files happen there, or do you have to ingest the data through like pipelines or data flows Gen 2 for that conversion to happen versus like dragging and dropping into the OneLake File Explorer?
Yeah, so we typically whenever there is this low code or no code experience, we typically go with Delta. We standardize whatever lands in tables. We standardize with Delta. That doesn't mean that users cannot create tables built on top of Parquet, purely Parquet, not Delta Parquet format.
Yep.
It's possible, but then you will not see those tables in semantic models using directly.
Okay.
You just have to keep Delta format whenever you want to rely on direct lake, and you want to have visibility on tables presented from lakehouses, warehouses, or whatever.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
Now let's go a bit further, because I mentioned that we want to avoid silos, right? So there's one more thing. Everything that we see here, I mean, those files, those tables, it all behaves exactly the same as typical Azure storage. So for example, if I go here to my payment type folder and payment type CSV file and go to properties, notice that it has attributes or properties typical for data stored in ADLS Gen 2, Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2. And that's another beauty of OneLake. We use ADLS Gen 2 APIs and SDKs, which means that you can connect to OneLake using pretty much everything that understands ADLS Gen 2 APIs and SDK. So for example, Azure Storage Explorer application can easily access OneLake if you have access as a user. So that's the beauty, which also gives immediate access from applications like Databricks. For example, you can copy this path to specific file or maybe folder or whatever, and then just switch to workbooks in Databricks, paste those paths, and then just work normally as typically people work with Spark. So nothing really different from what I presented in Notebook in Fabric. So that's the beauty. Now, I mentioned one copy paradigm. So we want people to avoid copying data and keeping several copies of the same data out of sync. So how to achieve that? Imagine that I know that some folks on my organization have already imported some data that is related to my newly uploaded payment type table. Now, what I can do is I can create shortcuts that will point to this specific data sitting already in OneLake, created by somebody else who granted me access to those resources. So I create a shortcut. You can treat a shortcut just like something you use in your operational system. You create a shortcut when you want to, for example, run exe file, but you don't want to copy this file on your desktop. You just want to have a shortcut on your desktop, right? So no data copy. So that's how shortcuts work. So I will connect to another lakehouse. This doesn't have to be lakehouse. I could connect to warehouse or another data item, but I will be lakehouse in this scenario because I know that data is stored there, and I have several tables. Some of them with billions of rows. Trip contains about 1.5 billion rows. Vendor and date. You can see payment type is already there, but I have my own payment type. And I will just create shortcuts for all those tables sitting in another lakehouse, and that is created by another user. Okay. It takes
the loss of speed essentially is non-existent or negligible between this because it's still sitting in the same.
It is not copied. It is not copied. It sits in the same data. It sits in the same data lake, not in the same storage. Physically, we can have different number of storages covering OneLake, and I will elaborate about it just in a second. But look here, I have tables. So normally, if I had 1.5 billion rows, it would take some time to copy the data. Here, I have access to this data immediately after a few seconds, right? And what I can do now is I can switch to a SQL analytics endpoint for my lakehouse, which is basically nothing more but just SQL experience to write T-SQL code over my lakehouse. And I can do several things. First of all, because I am familiar with SQL, then I will just use my SQL knowledge to build a query. Let me just paste the query that I have ready. It's basic query, but joining two tables. But look at this. I'm joining a table that I created on my own with a table containing 1.5 billion rows. That sits somewhere else, and I just know that those tables are somehow related to each other, and I build some query that returns the number of trips and the amount paid for those trips divided by specific payment types. So credit cards, cash, etc. Now the time, of course, flies because it is 1.5 billion rows, but you can see that I can easily query the data immediately, right? So no copy of data, and I have access to not just tables that I created, but also tables that have been shared with me by other people in the same organization, right? So that's beautiful stuff. Also, it's not just about writing SQL. If you are not that familiar with SQL, we give you a visual experience to create queries. So you can basically drag and drop tables and then operate very much like with Power Query experience or data flows experience. to build your transformations, joins, whatever you want. So I will not create this visual query. I prefer SQL, but just to let you know, it's possible to do all those things using clicky, draggy, droppy experience rather than writing SQL. Okay.
Channeling the inner Christian Wade.
Yeah, absolutely, Christian, great job. Now the other part, which is also great, is that now we offer Fabric to customers who already have some infrastructure, some investments in analytics, also on Azure. So not just on Azure, right? Different clouds. So why not bring the data that you've been using with, for example, Synapse Analytics to the same Fabric experience? And now it's again not that hard, because I could create, for example, knowing that I have some files in my data lake that I've been using with Synapse, I can go to my Azure portal where I have my data lake, Azure Data Lake Generation 2, and I copy the data lake primary endpoint, yeah, this one, and I will create another shortcut, this time in files section, because I probably keep some binaries there as well, not just tables. This time, this shortcut will reach out to Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2. And
I saw Amazon in there as well. I didn't realize you could create shortcuts to some of the other
Google
external
is on the
systems.
roadmap. Google Cloud is on the roadmap. And the difference right now between Azure Data Lake Generation 2 and S3 buckets is that for S3 buckets, you have read-only access. For Data Lake,
Gotcha.
you have read-write, so both ways. Now, I already created this connection probably, so just let me reuse it. But you can connect using organizational account, SAS signature, or key, whatever method works for you. And let me just call it bronze, because I know that in my storage I have bronze container, which is just a bronze layer of my data lake used for Synapse. And then again, no copy. Here I have some gigabytes of data sitting in the bronze layer, and I can just navigate through this through those folders just as they normally would sit in OneLake in the same storage, right? So I can see files, Parquet files sitting here. Wow. Now I can move to analytics over the data that is not even in Fabric, right? Immediately, because again, I can load the data to tables from here. Unfortunately, this experience that didn't work much for us today, but you can also work with notebooks. You can work with data flows to move this data, because this data is virtualized, and it's visible just like it would sit in OneLake physically. So again, that's a beauty. Right. I mentioned also that we use this OneDrive-like experience not just for browsing files and maybe uploading files, but also for different other reasons. So let's maybe go to a workspace. Let me just go to data warehouse workspace. Let me show you something that is also very much related to OneLake, which is called OneSecurity. So OneSecurity is all about operating with security layer that is common for the whole platform and covers all the data as it resides in OneLake. So there are a couple of things you need to know about managing access to data. Right now, there are 3 levels of security. Okay, one layer is on the workspace level. So just like in Power BI, you can manage access to the workspace by specifying roles for individuals or groups, right? So here you can see that I have 3 members of my workspace, admin, member, and viewer. Now, what differentiates those roles is that viewer role can only access data using data sets and SQL endpoints, but not physical files that are stored in OneLake. So if I add user 1 as viewer, this user will not be able to access OneLake File Explorer to access this data, because this data is invisible for this user, right? But still, if I grant enough permissions on a SQL endpoint, he or she will be able to go through the SQL analytics endpoint and reach out to my tables, which is all about analytics, right? Members and roles above, so, contributor and roles above, so members and admin will have access to files as well. So this is the differentiator on the workspace level. Now, if you want to master this security story for OneLake, there is a single documentation page that you can use, which is called OneLake Security, and you will see that workspace security is #1. Then there is item security. So let's go and see item security, right?
And I'll pull that up to drop into the chat as well for people.
Yeah, let me just grab it.
I got it.
Okay. Yeah,
thankfully,
sure.
top result on Google. Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just OneLake security is one. And the other one, which I encourage you to go to, is OneLake shortcuts, especially types of shortcuts, because here you can read about the context of or identity used to go to the data sitting in storages mapped as shortcuts, because it changes for different types of shortcuts. So you have to be aware that, for example, when you go through Power BI semantic model, not dataset, or T-SQL experience, you will be using the identity of calling item and not your own identity to go to shortcuts. So just those are nuances, but you have to master this when you want to work with shortcuts effectively. Okay, I would say it's not that hard. It's pretty natural, but again, it's definitely worth checking what would be the context of your user working with specific shortcuts. Now, there is a second layer. Beyond the workspace security, we can go and, even if a user doesn't have any workspace role, we can simply go to specific data item like warehouse, for example, and use share option. Boom, and it just shoot me, but it looks very much like in OneDrive.
Yeah, so exactly.
You just put the name of the user that you want to grant access to this specific data item, for example, user 1, and then you have a bunch of options. If you deselect and you will have nothing selected, it means that you grant access to the specific SQL endpoint that covers this specific warehouse, but that the user will not be able to query anything. You will have to grant specific permissions to specific tables using SQL inside of your warehouse if you want this person to read something from your tables. You can also grant read all using SQL, and that will grant something like DB data reader on top of your warehouse. So this person will be able to read everything from your tables and views. Okay. Then you can also add read all using Apache Spark, and this will be actually pretty much like you add permission to read files from OneLake. Okay, and then you have build reports on default dataset. Default dataset is something that is always created along with Lakehouse or Warehouse. You just have all tables that come from Lakehouse or Warehouse in this default dataset, and it's I believe by default it's using direct lake mode, so you can immediately query data and build reports using direct lake mode on top of your lakehouses and warehouses. Okay, exactly. So that's just I mean this whole behavior is very much like OneDrive. And notice here at the bottom we even guide you through the specific options that you can use to go further to give more granular permissions to specific tables inside of your warehouse. So again, you are guided. I believe in the future we will guide you even more, but now this is what we have, right? I will not grant this user some additional permission, but just for you to know, it's like this. Now, if I go to this warehouse, let me just open it for a second. You need to know that there is the third layer of security, which is not what falls into this one security concept, because Different runtimes, like warehouse, will have different security mechanisms to use for granting permissions and control the visibility of data. So here, for example, just go and see. So for example, here I have some implementation of row-level security over my warehouse. It's very much like in SQL Server or other Microsoft databases where you operate with T-SQL. So you have to create two things. One is the security, is the predicate function that actually returns one or zero. Basically one when the user should have access to specific table, and then you create a security policy that uses this predicate function to cover specific table. For example, in this case, fact sale.
Exactly.
So this function is a bit simplified example, because it just takes username of the currently connected user, checks whether it's user one. If it's user one, then we show only city key equals this one, right? So the user one will just see a single city key, which basically is nothing more but just a column in a fact sale table. So pretty much simple, but you can make it more complex. You can make it dynamic according to your needs. But that's another layer. Of course, you have also, because it's a SQL database, so you have also grant, revoke, and deny commands that allow you to grant, for example, grant select on.
And once you're done with RLS too, I have a question on your thoughts on one of the other types of security features that I've not explored myself, but I do know there's like 4 or 5 ways to apply security as far as implementations of the Wakehouse. But one of the cool ones that I've seen is the dynamic masking.
This is the new feature, absolutely. It is not that new. If you are familiar with SQL Server, for example, I mean, it's not encryption. It's just basically you can specify that on selected column you put a rule that user without specific permissions go and see just let's say what's the good word in English for that? Anonymized data. It's anonymized data.
Exactly.
Right? So
it's like an Etch-a-Sketch where it just takes and shakes the data up and it jumbles the numbers.
So instead of email addresses or other data that falls into some kind of private stuff like SSNs or whatever, you will just see a bunch of hashtags or replacement or stars. So that's basically it. So it's not much different from what you have in SQL Server. And if you want to read more, there's actually an introductory blog post by Stan, recently posted. So dynamic data masking, Fabric Warehouse. Stan explains how this thing works, and also there is of course the official documentation and how to guide in the documentation. So just go to the Fabric blog, aka.ms/Fabric blog. Maybe let me write it down. Sorry. Let me just put it on this page. If you go to ik.ms/Fabric blog, this is the what we call Fabric updates blog right now, and we present all the updates, monthly updates, newly announced features, and also some best practice blog posts. So really useful
if I get
stuff.
that link, and here we go. I'll drop that in.
Yeah. I have
it's October 31st for that. So pretty new announced feature.
It's just announced, absolutely. So again, we work on improving security features, and again, I realized that right now we don't see everything that is related with security in Fabric, but the good news is that there is a roadmap, official public roadmap. Again, let me put the link on the screen. It's ak.ms/Fabric roadmap. What do you know? And if you go there, you will just find the bunch of sections, like, for example, OneLake. probably the most interesting from the perspective of today's live stream. And you can see that OneLake security is one of the investments that we see for the future. Shortcuts for Google Cloud Storage. If you've been using Google Cloud, you should be happy with Fabric as well. Folders, long-awaited feature for Power BI will come up, and I think that we even announced in this little block of text that
I missed that though, the folders. That's going to be because the number of objects that can now like appear in a workspace is I've seen a lot where it's a massive list. So organizing by like your warehouses, your lake houses, your reports, your data sets, and all this other stuff, front and back end, I think will help a lot.
The big thing here is that subsequent updates. So first we will announce folders, which will be just about organizing your items, but then we will invest in folder-related permission management. So,
I like that. I was going to say, because that's essentially being able to show and hide, or outside of viewer, member, viewer, contributor, member, admin, you'd be able to have certain type of permit. Yeah, so 20 people could be in a workspace, but it's almost like apps and app viewers. You could have a subset of objects visible to certain people in the workspace itself. So is that visibility or also security? Meaning, they don't see it, but is there any way to bypass what they see to actually connect to it, or is it also both a visibility and security? That's the thinking behind that.
So right now, the number one implementation will be about visibility. So even if you look at what we developed today, just go back to our cool and fancy Havens workspace, right? Look here, I created just a lakehouse and the notebook, but we have also corresponding semantic model and SQL Analytics endpoint. So the number of items multiplies quickly, and you really have to be a master of using those filters here and search box to look for your specific items. There is also one place where I would also keep an eye on would be this OneLake Data Hub, because here you can also navigate through pretty much everything that you have access to, and also search for endorsed things and filter by item types, whatever. So we will invest also in this place of UX mostly for business users, so they could easily locate items that fall into their interest. Notice that you can also narrow the search area to specific domain. Domain is something that is like a logical container for workspaces. So you can, for example, keep several workspaces that fall into finance business area as one, and I just search for things that fall into finance. So again, there are a couple of places when you can search for items, but folders will address some issues with keeping things organized for sure. Okay.
Agreed.
Now, one thing that I also would like to show, somehow I forgotten this. I highlighted that OneLake is some form of virtualized storage. And to show you that, let me just present two workspaces that I have pinned here. One is called OneLake GeoDemo North Central US. The other one is called the same, but West US 2. Now, the names suggest what it's all about. So those two workspaces sit on different Azure regions, but in just one OneLake. So OneLake can span across geographically, it can span across different regions. So whenever you have any requirement to keep data in specific regions of Microsoft Cloud, you can achieve that. Now, how this can be achieved? Those two workspaces are backed by two different capacities, and of course, each of these capacities sits in a different region, right? So as simple as that. And then you just simply map your workspaces to specific capacity, and that's it. So in workspace settings, in Premium, you should see that I am using. I'm not sure I will not see this because the capacity is down. So I would have to turn it on. So Also, that's the beauty of Azure capacities, that you can pause them when they are not used. So you just don't pay for them when they are paused. That's the beauty. So again, lots of great investments here, and we address lots of problems. Going back to this documentation part and roadmap, what I would do, I encourage you not to just go to OneLake. If you are a fan of OneLake and you look for security improvements, some of the security improvements you will also find in different areas like admin and governance. For example, private link support is coming to Fabric as well. It's not that soon, but again, next year we should have this one. There are also some connectivity using workspace identity. This will come to security features as well. And if you go to warehouse and data engineering, you will find some other stuff too. But what I would highlight is this OneLake security model, because that means that we will go with security to the granularity of files and folders and tables that you see right now in lakehouses. So right now, again, the control is a bit limited, and you have to play with several layers. But there will be more and more things landing in this one security concept. So that to make the security defined on the level where data is actually stored, and not on layers that come later on. So that cover the OneLake data files. So that's it.
The same link that I already posted. Just double checking OneLake security.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in the in the roadmap. So I would go through pretty much everything. It's not that big part of the documentation, but just be aware of what's coming to the product. And of course, going back to the blog, you've already mentioned that there is a Fabric October update, right? But just keep an eye on this. In announcements section of the blog, you will find monthly updates that cover everything from Power BI to Synapse experiences, data activator, or whatever is in Fabric, right? So again, great source of knowledge if you want to keep on in sync with what's new. I think we've just released what's new section in the documentation as well. Just go and check.
The overview, what's new, yeah.
I don't know. Probably yes.
Yep, I think that was the link that I just shared. Is the what's new?
Yeah. So what's new covers not just the product, but also what happens on the blog, etc. So this is a great place to visit as well.
Now I know that there's curiously between, flip back to us, we have Amazon connections shortcuts, we have Google shortcuts. Clearly there's an incentive to push towards other platforms that contain a type of Parquet file, just because it's
not just Parquet, but
well, and other stuff too. But among some of the other popular platforms that use Parquet formats, like Snowflake stores in that. So like, is there in general just a continued push to probably make more connections to other systems that contain similar file types, because ideally all those pass-throughs will still let you use direct lake to OneLake, and OneLake has a shortcut to other places that have some type of a Parquet. So hopefully that whole pass-through, certainly compared to direct query, will be substantially less. And I know today some of the recommendations that I've given to clients, I've not implemented it, but it's, if you're already doing a bunch of stuff in another system where you're transforming a lot of data, the best way to get performance similar to import is just do a very quick copy paste of the Parquet file from the external system, just stick it into OneLake basically as a file transfer, and then you can do the direct link against that. But even that hopefully will be something that can be circumvented to reduce that data movement, which I know is the whole point of the Fabric platform.
So the good thing is that even if you have your data accessed via shortcut, if the data is based on Delta format, you can benefit from direct lake. So you can use products from data products from Databricks, for example, which are based on the Delta format, to easily create tables, virtualized tables in Fabric, and access them using direct lake from your semantic models. So that's the beauty. I can even show probably some demo of Direct Lake if we still have some time.
Sure.
I have some Direct Lake lake house again. Let me just quickly show you some things here. So I have this. That's nothing new. This is this 1.5 billion rows stable trip with some additional, let's say, dimension tables. You can actually see that in the same workspace, I have my semantic model, default semantic model for this specific lakehouse and tables that are presented from the lakehouse. So I can immediately create a report from the scratch. And let's see if this works actually and how fast this can be. Let me just go and see the number of passengers. Now the first query takes the data as it is. So to count the number of passengers, I have to go through the whole table. There's no magic, at least to the whole passengers or passenger count column. But it was still faster than scanning 1.5 billion table in SQL. Then let's try to combine this with maybe some dimension. Let's put year, maybe on another visual. Let's make it like this. Let me put the same passengers measure. Now notice that I have measures, right? So still in modeling, in your default semantic model, you can have measures, DAX measures created. So that's another part. And then you can see that it started working a bit faster because all the data that was required for both visuals have been already loaded to the memory of semantic model. So it is actually as fast as Vertipack, right? Again,
Okay, exactly, and it's doing all the
1.5
caching and
billion rows,
auto tuning.
right? So normally what you probably would come up with in Power BI would be to create some aggregations, maybe based on automatic aggregations. Here it's all done. I haven't clicked anything. I just created a report and it just works, right? So of course there are still some limitations. For example, the amount of data that may be stored and cached using Direct Lake mode depends on the capacity you have. So whenever capacity ends and the memory is full of your data based on your queries sent from semantic model and report, you start getting into direct query mode. So the performance will degrade. Second, of course, there are some limitations on DAX, but that's natural, but we will work on getting rid of those limitations in the future. Right now, I think that for some scenarios, Direct Lake can be quite an interesting option, especially when you need to query a large amount of data.
I agree. And I think as they continue to expose features to Direct Lake, I know 6 weeks ago they added calculation groups as an option to tabular editor can now deploy to it. I think I even saw like recently with the some of the custom visuals, like InfoRiver with its write back has an option to write directly to OneLakes now as well. So the people are certainly leveraging tools to be able to push and both read and write data into the OneLake environment, which and lake houses specifically.
We try to build a kind of synergy between people, between different roles and different skill sets. For example, I would be super interested if I was Power BI developer, maybe a bit more pro Power BI developer. I would be super interested in semantic link, for example, or SemPy, which is by design we plan to make it a bit a tool for data scientists to get data in Python from semantic models. But the use cases for Power BI developers are just amazing. I mean, you can basically go to notebooks and start playing with your semantic models using even SQL, right? So wow, that's something. I know several Power BI developers who would prefer using SQL over semantic models than DAX.
It depends on where your expertise lies, right?
Absolutely. But again,
Yep.
we are trying to make this platform friendly for any skill set.
Yeah, I agree. I'm curious to see how this will continue to evolve in the next year, and also just some of the stuff that people will be talking about during Pass and Ignite here next week,
Yeah.
which is in my backyard, basically.
Yeah, sure. I have some links for sharing, but I'm not sure if they
Feel
are
free to
probably
send them
well
over to me.
now.
I've been
Yeah,
sharing every link that you have as
just
well.
just
So
displaying some of the some subset of what we actually produced and presented to broader audience. But again, if I would start with Fabric today, first of all, make sure you make a good use of trials. They are still here, 60 days of trial, F64 capacity, which is pretty solid to play with your workloads. Then, if you find some things missing or you would like something else to be implemented in the product, make sure you give us some feedback. So Fabric Ideas is the site for you to visit. Make sure you're a part of Fabric community. We have Fabric community, which is not just about asking your questions, but also sharing your portfolio reports and what you come up with Power BI, and also lots of announcements that we share with the community. Fabric updates blog I mentioned, and if you want to learn, there's a learning path. I'm not sure if one, but one for sure about Fabric, which you can access at Microsoft Learn. It also what also is interesting is that you can use 4 step-by-step end-to-end scenario tutorials in documentation, which cover lakehouse, warehouse, real-time analytics, and data science. So it's easy to really start working with this platform, and you don't have to pay any money because trial doesn't ask you for credit card even. So
yeah, exactly. Beautiful. I dropped those 2 into here. If you can, make sure to just give me this deck, and every link here, I'll make sure that this is mirrored into the video description below for the people watching this later on as well. Excellent. Pawel, I want to thank you for coming on for this. Also, definitely want to get you back on sometime in the future. I'm sure the conversations around this platform are going to continuously booming. It's a car that's being driven and being built at the same time. So lots of changes are coming to this. But this has been really great, and I think a lot of good insights. And I also dropped a link to Adam's video that he did on the semantic link recently, because I just saw an email that there's a new blog post today that actually talked about that as well, with the ability to go from kind of some of the data science stuff in Azure and back and forth between the Power BI data sets. So
yeah, this is absolutely, well, that's another favorite feature of mine. But again, there are lots of folks on the product team who can cover it better than me. So probably here today you should have Josh Kaplan elaborating on somebody from his team. But
I'll say, hey, if there's actually a person that you want to connect me to get on for stream, feel free to shoot an email between the 3 of us, and I'll happily bring some other people on to get more techie, nerdy, and deep dives into some of the sciencey stuff. Because I haven't really done much of the data engineering things that have gone more into the AI and other ML stuff yet. But that would, I think, be personally a very fun topic that I'd love to host. So feel free.
It's not a secret that we want you, I mean Power BI developers and people who used to work with Power BI interested in things that we added in Fabric to Power BI experience. So absolutely. And what I can say, make sure, I mean, people who watch us today, make sure you watch the sessions at Ignite. Lots of cool things coming, and I think Reid, you will have lots of topics to cover with your guests in the future after Ignite on Fabric, of course, as well.
Next week is Nat with Power BI Inspector, but then after that I'll have Alex Powers and a few others. But I'm sure there'll be at least a few things to talk about next week. I'm actually presenting twice on Thursday. I have both my sessions next Thursday at Pass, and then I'll be perusing around at the Ignite, because they're literally just across the hall from each other, which is pretty funny.
Absolutely, those events are super close.
Yeah, exactly. Pawel, though, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on, and otherwise enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm looking forward to getting you back on at some point again in the future.
Absolutely. Happy to join you again. Thanks for having me today.
Beautiful.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.